spent a lot of time doing it. It's a kind of horror story, I guess. It's called Legend Has It. I slipped into the house, which was as cold and dark as a tomb. I've always wanted to come to this house. Legend has it this old plantation was taken over by the slaves that lived there after they attacked their owner, but they were driven out of town by the locals. But nobody has ever been able to prove that it happened. They were still seen as property, and the racist town was furious that they had attacked their owners for their freedom. My friends and I have always made fun of the creepy house and scared each other and joked about going into it at night, so I decided I would. The door closed and I stepped inside as I stared at it, but I got a gut feeling. It was weird. I couldn't really figure out what my brain was telling me. I turned away from the door and I immediately knew what my gut was telling me when I was met by a pair of bright green eyes staring back at me. They were almost glowing, as the eyes were all I could see in the dark room. I froze and the eyes stared at me from across the room. Neither of us moved a muscle or took a single breath. I pressed myself against the now closed door, the eyes still the only thing visible in the pitch black room. I couldn't tell if this thing could see me or not. A ray of moonlight shining in through the old dirty window just barely missed the creature before me, but we still sat in silence staring at each other as if it was a contest. What is this thing? A cat? No, it's too tall to be a cat. Dogs' eyes don't look like that, so there's no way it's a dog either. The creature began to slowly back away, its eyes still pasted onto mine. It finally turned and began to walk, still staring at me. When it walked through the ray of moonlight, I caught a glimpse of fur. The fur was long and nappy, and the animal was much taller than I thought, and it was slouching. Standing up straight, it could nearly match me in height. It turned away, and I took the opportunity to yank the door open and sprint out of the house. My legs pushed me through the front lawn of the giant home, down the empty road and back to the main street before pausing. I looked back to see nothing chasing me, nothing following me. Holy shit, I whispered to myself. What the hell was that thing? Well, I guess the bigger question was, why was it so calm? Why wasn't it shocked or scared that I was there? This creature fueled my curiosity about what really happened at the abandoned plantation. I had to figure out what it was that I had encountered that night. The next morning, I shot out of my bedroom, the camera hanging around my neck, bouncing as I ran. My mother asked me if I was going to eat breakfast, but I told her I didn't have time. I would have asked Mary to go with me, but she had violin lessons that morning. I arrived at the plantation, the daylight shining in the windows. I opened the door slowly, knife in one hand and video camera in the other. I was nervous. I was documenting the trip, so if I lived, I would know exactly what lived there. I pulled open the door and held up my camera. What was in front of me I didn't see the night before. The large room was destroyed. Someone trashed the place. Old belongings and material from the furniture lay scattered across the room. Broken glass from the windows sprinkled on top of it all. The old piano sat in the corner of the enormous space, some of the keys missing. The paint was stained and giant cobwebs littered the corners and the ceiling. I made my way into the kitchen. Beautiful antique plates and bowls and china shattered, cupboards and pantries torn apart and ravaged. It was unusual. Why hadn't they taken their things with them? Why did they leave so suddenly? I gasped as I turned the corner to go up the stairs. I almost vomited and I put my hand over my mouth. The corpses of 3 dead cats lay scattered on the stairs, blood sprayed on the walls around them. I pointed my camera at it and I turned away. I couldn't look at it any longer. I tiptoed over the bodies, trying to avoid any contact at all costs. The staircase reeked of death and mold. I reached the top of the stairs and I was surprised. As opposed to the first floor of the house, the second floor was in almost perfect condition. Vases sat perfectly on tables, rugs lying on the floor untouched. I tiptoed down the hallway, pushing one of the cracked bedroom doors open in the large corridor. It was very small, and a perfectly made bed sat in the middle of the room as the wallpaper was torn. Dolls and toys were scattered on the floor, but the one item that laying on the floor was odd. A small pink shoe. The shoe was a bit smaller than my hand. I set the knife down on the bed and looked around the room for the matching shoe, but it wasn't there. One single baby shoe. I left the room, but once I got to the other side of the doorway, I heard a creak. I froze. Silence filled the air as I listened, and I was afraid to move my body. I heard another creak to my left. I turned my head slowly, and the rest of my body was not moving. My breath caught in my throat, tears brimming in my eyes and my hands shaking. The creature that I had encountered the night before stood at the end of the hall, its glowing green eyes burning into mine as it remained statue still. Neither of us moved. My entire body began to tremble. It was as tall as me, maybe taller, with the build of an abnormally large hyena with jet black long hair. Its mouth was open and a long tongue was hanging out, its long yellow teeth bared. Drool dripped from his mouth, and it hunched over like a wolf circling its prey. It snarled and hissed with an expression that looked hauntingly similar to a smile, but it sounded more like a snake than a dog. It had 3 claws on each paw, if you can even call them that, and no tail. What is this thing? It can't exist. It doesn't exist. The creature turned to face me at the end of the hallway and began to bound its way over to me, still snarling with a murderous look in its eye. I ran down the hall and slammed into the door at the end, turning around. I forgot my knife in the bedroom. It was 30 feet away, 20 feet. It sped towards me, my life flashed before my eyes, my closed eyes as I covered my face with my arms and screamed as loud as I could. I felt something around my head, and the camera dropped to the floor, blood dripping over the lens, pointing upward at the unfolding scene. They will find out what it was one day. They will see what happened, how I disappeared. They will find my body at the end of this long corridor if that thing doesn't drag me away. One day someone will bother to look inside the abandoned plantation. One day they will find the evidence, and they will find me, but I can only hope that their fate is not the same as mine.